never compromises through adversity. And he is our Republican State Committee man. And he's also the visionary behind Bold Businesses for Liberty, which has made national headlines across America. So please give it up for Alfie Oakes. Now, Alfie, I know you always say that your actions are not courageous, and you get a little uncomfortable when people start saying thank you for standing up, okay? But why are having principles so important to you, and why is it important for other businesses to be bold in this time?
My father, many of you here may have met him. He was in the community for a long time. He taught me, above all things, to thine own self be true. About a year and 2 months ago is when, a year and 2 weeks ago rather, is when the very first idea of these shutdowns started coming around. And I, as probably a lot of people in this room, could smell something. It didn't seem right. I called Senator Rick Scott. I said, you know, what's going on with these shutdowns and you know what we're seeing coming and all this talk. And he seemed pretty concerned. The conversation we had that day is I said, I'm not going to ever social distance. We're not going to shut down. There wasn't a whole lot of talk at that particular point about masking up then. That was a little bit later in the game. But the next day when I called him and I said, I'm going to do this Facebook post that was going to come out and would, you know, basically call the COVID a sham, hoax, I think might have been the actual word. But he said, you know what? He said, you're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. He had one of the world's leading epidemiologists called, and we were on a three-way phone call. He didn't call till like 9 o'clock at night. He was in Washington, D.C. I wish I would have recorded the hour and 45-minute conversation that we had with this gentleman a year and 2 weeks ago, because he said emphatically that night that children would never have anything to worry about, that the chances of a child dying from the COVID-19 virus they had a better chance of getting, you know, dying on the school bus ride going to school. He also said that people with a healthy immune system, 96% was the word he used, so wouldn't be bothered by it. The senator was trying to convince me otherwise, I believe, but afterwards I was bold and we came out with that. And at Seed to Table, we have 8,000 people a day coming through the doors. A handful of workers have masks, but no one ever died. Not one person ever died at our store, even though in June they came out with a fake story that one of our farm workers died, which was totally false, and we sued them for it, and they retracted it, but the retraction was about this big, and no one ever heard of it. But it's amazing through this process how many times Scripture from the Bible has come into it. As a matter of fact, when I made that first Facebook post that went kind of crazy, it was when I was talking about, I learned about a time when I was a child, and they talked about a time that would come where people would not know the difference between good and evil. And I used to think as a child, well, that's impossible. That could never happen. And then we're watching it all. We've all watched what's unfolded in the last year, and that's exactly what we've seen. The importance of the truth, of standing up for the truth. I only wore a mask ever in my whole life so far, ever one time, and it was with Ivanka Trump. We were giving out, I donated $100,000 worth of food boxes at Christmas because the federal program ran out of money to do boxes at Christmas time, of all the time when you want to have food for families. So we went over there, and I'd even been with the president, and the Secret Service told me 3 times to put on a mask. I thought they were going to tase me, and I didn't put it on then. Wow. But with Ivanka, she looked at me with those pretty brown eyes and asked if I'd wear the mask while we put the boxes in the cars, and I couldn't say no, so I kind of caved. In John 1, it says, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And that hit me so square because, first of all, I remember reading it as such, but I never thought about, like, why did they put in the beginning there was the Word? It seems like in the beginning there was God, right? Not the Word. But it shows how profound that the Word is, that the truth of the Word is. We all allow the media to perpetrate these lies, or we won't stand up against the lies. If we won't be bold and we won't speak the truth when we know the truth, when we see the truth right in front of us, if we're going to cower. The great founding fathers that gave up everything for us to have this platform. I grew up very poor, and I've lived the American dream, and I feel like I owe everything to my country. I owe everything to the great men that sacrificed, you know, all for our country. People come and they say, oh, we feel bad for all that you're you're taking. We're putting up with all this. I've never had a bad day ever in my life, not through any of it. I might have had one bad 5 seconds maybe. Right after this, the Lee County Schools canceled our contract. It was about a $50 million contract. They canceled that contract. One of my big customers, Market Basket up in New England, canceled us. That was another $20 or $30 million contract. And I really didn't care about the money. But I went home that night kind of feeling beat up a little bit. And I come home, and my daughter was senior in high school. She was at the top of the stairs, and she was crying her eyeballs out. And she was asking me, "Daddy, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to our family?" She had been getting death threats, and she had her picture put all over with racist across her face. And it shows how evil and also how really organized like the Black Lives Matter movement is, because that was when we came out against them. My life is so much richer because of it, and my daughter's life is so much richer because of it. At that moment, she came crying down the stairs, and it was that 5 seconds before she hit the floor where I was thinking about, should I pull back? And at that, before she hit the stairs, I said, no, I'm going to explain to her the reasons why that we have to take this stand. And at that time, she'd been around our family, which is a fairly conservative family, but she never really was into politics. That very night, we sat there and talked for an hour and a half, and we went all the way through the Founding Fathers, and we talked about everything that they sacrificed. They say that learning is not the filling of a vessel, but a lighting of a fire. And her fire got lit that night because she had to go out there and explain to even kids in school right now that don't like her. She understands why she has taken that position, and she's turned into a galvanized, beautiful young lady because of it. She's the vice president of Turning Point here in town, and so I think that God blesses us if we make the right decisions. Not always, you can't always see it right away, but I know I've been blessed. Our Bold Business Initiative, I've talked to a lot of, I think we had across the country around 17 or 1,800 businesses that opened on March 1st with our initiative, and we sent them a lot of the front door signs that we have and things like that. Obviously, our governor has been amazing. I feel I'm going to get behind him like I've never got behind another politician. I feel like I owe him money. I feel like I owe him a lot of money. So I hope that every realtor in town feels the same way, and that to jump on one other thing is, we can't be divided within our own party. And our CCREC, I know there's a few members in here, it's been really, the last couple meetings that we have been something I'm not proud of at all. We are working hard to change some of that around. If anybody that's thinking about not coming, give it one more shot. We're going to really working with the different people to try to make sure that we because that's exactly what the other side wants us to do, is to be divided. This whole January 6th thing was an attempt to do just exactly that. I went home that Monday night, and I was there for a couple hours even afterwards, but I went home that night, and I laid down, and I'm thinking, what is wrong with us? Like, what is wrong with our party? And one thing occurred to me is that most of us conservative, Republican-type people, we're independent. We're not followers. We're people that have our own ideas. So when we come to that party, we all have our own ideas, right? The Democrats, on the other hand, and there's been psychological studies on this. A good friend of mine, they're followers. But guess what? When you're trying to organize something like the CCRC, you just get one leader and everybody follows, and they all follow lockstep, and it makes it really easy. And it makes it where they're really powerful in that, because they don't think, they just follow. And so it's a little harder to round us all up sometimes, but I'm going to try to get some unity. And we have to respect each other's differences. And I hear the term rhino, and if you're not for this, so we got some other people that kind of create dissension in there, but I'm gonna give it my best shot to pull that together, and we all really have to stay united now more than ever. So I hope that everybody can do that.
Give a round of applause, everybody. Alfie Oakes, our Republican State Committee man, our visionary behind Bold Businesses. Thank you for everything you do, Alfie.